Hey guys, this is Neil Clements. I'm coming to you raw and unfiltered and with no fluff. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a system that I used to be able to scale my land investing business to multi-seven figures a handful of years into the business. And what I'm going to show you is where your gap is based upon your income and based upon where your business is. And then also I'm going to show you how to plug some of those gaps and some hacks that I've used to be able to grow the business so quickly. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, stick with us and we'll get to it. So the simple framework that I'm talking about, I call progressive overload. And if you're familiar with strength training or bodybuilding, or heck, if you even just work out ever in your life, you might have heard the concept of progressive overload. And essentially what it is in weight training is that you're going to work out a certain number of reps with a certain weight, and you're going to try to overload your muscles. And then you come back stronger, say in the next few days, and then you progressively overload that muscle to where you're not doing the same workout every time. So for instance, if you're doing curls or bench or whatever you're doing, you're not going to continue to do the same weight, continue to do the same reps, because once you get stronger, you need to give progressive overload for it to be able to grow your muscles. And so like strength training, business is the exact same. When we talk about progressive overload in business, what we really mean is we're breaking down our business into a few key categories. For land investing, what that looks like is you've got acquisitions, you've got funding, you've got dispositions, and you've got systems and staff. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these individually, and we're going to show why this is what it is, because whenever we look at progressively overloading a business, when you have acquisitions, that's when a lead comes in and then you convert a lead. Right? You generate it, you convert it. You have funding. So are you partnering, or are you just self-funding, or are you getting leverage? Meaning, are you getting like a loan or something like that? When we talk about dispositions, are you wholesaling it? Are you actually buying it and then selling it? Or what does that look like? And then when we talk about systems and staff, the final part of this is after you have done this whole thing, you come back and reassess. And so the concept of progressive overload for this business, I want you to look at it as a circle of life. You start in acquisitions. And what your objective is to generate too many leads so that you have too many conversions so that you run out of money, right? You run out of funding, or you run out of partners. And then once you run out of partners, then you got to sell it all. Then you run out of ability to sell it all. And then after that whole loop, you plug your gaps by adding systems, and then you add staff to be able to get to the next level. In our business, we ran a campaign with our acquisitions team that was kind of a joke, but it got the point across. The campaign was Make Neil Broke. We were trying to have the acquisitions team go out, lock up way too many properties, put under contract way too many properties to where there's no way that we could possibly buy all of them. And again, when we can't buy all of them, then we've broken our funding, then we got to go out fundraise or partner or whatever it looks like. Then we got to sell it all, then we got to hire to plug the gap. And then we do that on a loop and a loop and a loop, and it's over and over again. And so what I see from a lot of people in the beginning stage is kind of break down the different stages here of where people get stuck. The beginners, the land investors who are 0 to 100,000 a year in income in land investing. The beginners typically get stuck at acquisitions, and more specifically, not lead conversion. They typically get stuck at lead generation. Their hurdle is that they're really not even spending enough money or time or generating high quality enough leads to be able to convert them into deals. And if you're in that position, it's not a very hard problem to solve. You just have to do more lead generation. Where it becomes difficult, of course, is if you don't have the money to do lead generation. Yeah, then you're kind of stuck. You got to do low cost methods. Maybe you got to hop on the phones yourself. Maybe you got to be more specific with filtering down your list so that you're only mailing a few hundred instead of a few thousand. Because there are very successful businesses that don't send out thousands and hundreds of thousands of mail every single month. Maybe they send out a few thousand or even a few hundred, especially when getting started. But if you are stuck here, you are not making 100,000 a year in income, and potentially even more, your gap is acquisitions, and you plug it by doing more lead generation. That is where you are stuck. Alex Hormozi had a really good quote that I heard him say lately. He basically said that if your business isn't growing, and this is for any level, beginner, intermediary, advanced, if your business isn't growing, you're spending time being efficient at the wrong things. And that was really eye-opening to me, because when I look at our business and its growth and everything like that, there are times where we get stagnant. There are times where things get stale and it doesn't continue to grow. And you got to ask yourself, what am I being efficient at that doesn't matter? and then you either need to leverage that off or you need to stop doing it. So the second part of this is intermediate. So that's when you get up to 100,000 a year to 500,000 a year in income. And I know that's a lot more broad from 0 to 100. 0 to 100, the beginner, is super, super hard because that's when you're just starting out figuring everything out. As you get to 100 to 500, that's when more of funding and dispositions becomes your problem. For instance, in my business, especially when we were doing a lot of house flips before we got into land investing, I got stuck there for a long time. And it wasn't like I chose to be stuck there, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I had a partner. We would split the deals 50-50. I would bring in the deals. He would do the renovations, manage it through the entire process, pay for it all, and then I would sell it. And I consider that a very good partnership. Eventually, though, the problem is that I was giving up half of the income whenever I had the deal. When I moved over to the land investing, that became a lot more simple because there wasn't really a lot of contracting. My only gap was really funding at that point. But fortunately, after a few years of doing deals, after snowballing that and cashing out of a few rental property investments, I was able to self-fund from there. And so that became huge. And so if you're getting stuck at 100 to 500,000, I'm willing to bet it's probably because you're using partners, you're using funders, you're not using your own capital, and you're giving away a ton of equity or a ton of split on your partnerships. That's probably one of the biggest things. Number two, especially if you're wholesaling, you're not able to sell all the deals coming your way. And so either you're doing a profit split, a JV to somebody to sell your deals, or you don't have the dispositions pipeline in place to be able to sell the deals quickly, to be able to fuel back your acquisitions. And so those are typically the places that people get stuck at that point. And so those are the gaps you have to plug. Now, when you get to the advanced level, 500 to 1 million to 5 million, et cetera, that's when you push your problem down to systems and staff. And you might even hit it before then. You might even hit it between 100 to 500. And the reason that becomes a problem is because it's very difficult to run a business of that magnitude by yourself. Even if you're doing large deals, you're still doing several deals a month, especially if you're doing small deals. I mean, you're at hundreds at this point every single year. And so your best time as the investor or the business owner is not going to be spent maybe transaction coordinating or operating or running the systems behind the scenes. It's going to be spent on growing the business. And so you're going to have to learn how to hire. To learn how to hire is very difficult, but just like when you started in the land investing business, when you didn't know marketing very well and you just started marketing, that's what you have to do with hiring too. Beyond some basic background checks, maybe some personality tests, maybe a few interviews, you just have to do it. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, is that in order to grow the business beyond an intermediate level to get to the advanced level, you're gonna have to hire people, and you're gonna have to master systems, and you're gonna have to master hiring. And so that's when it becomes working in the business to become a business owner. And that is a very, very difficult transition point for anybody going in that stage. But don't get me wrong, no matter where you are at in the business, whether you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, no matter if you make 50,000 a year to 5 million a year, the cycle is going to apply to you. And I've spoken in a lot of generalities as far as the problems you're going to have, but you may find that you're at an advanced level but stuck on acquisitions. Maybe your acquisitions didn't scale the way it needed to. And so the way that we have done it is that as we get stuck, every quarter we identify our gap. We say, is it acquisitions, funding, dispositions, or is it systems and staff? Which do we got to plug? But for us, it has always come back to the life cycle of we have to overwhelm our leads, to overwhelm our executed contracts, to overwhelm our funding, to overwhelm our dispo, to overwhelm our systems and our staff. We hire more staff at the end, and then we go and we do it all over again. I actually heard this yesterday. It was a good piece of scripture from the Bible, and it's Proverbs 14:4. And what it says is, when there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. And why I think that's so important, and the reason I'm sharing it with you, is because there's a lot of people out there who are just lone rangers, who say that I don't need to hire anybody. I don't need any kind of staff. And yeah, sure, maybe your stable is clean, right? In the analogy, maybe everything is done the best way that it can be done because you're doing it. Maybe you're never going to have anybody as good as you on your team. All the limiting beliefs that we all have around hiring. But we got to realize is that if we don't do it with other people, we're always going to stunt our growth. Our stable is always going to be clean. Hiring is dirty, as we just heard in the scripture in the proverb. And in the same way, you just have to get past it. It's going to be dirty. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be effort. but just like anything in business, it's going to be rewarding as well. I hope you enjoyed this video on progressive overload. Definitely subscribe to the channel, like the video, let us know more of what you want to see on here, and I look forward to getting to talk to you soon.